really lovely story that where you are the protagonist.
So it's an incredible story, and there are several protagonists. My role is one of them because it's very pivotal in telling the story. We also have the character of Federico García Lorca and Nuria, who it's interesting. Here she's portrayed as directly the pupil, the student of Margarita Xirgu, but in reality, they never met. But Nuria was very influenced and impacted by Margarita's life. And the real life Nuria is still alive today. And she lives in Spain. And she has become also an actress and producer and teacher as well. And yeah, it's beautiful.
Oh, okay. So thank you for clarifying that. That explains. I was listening to the soundtrack. I'm trying to envision it.
It visually, it is an incredible production. There are so many elements to it. So the wonderful thing about live opera, live performance, is that you have the opportunity to bring in all the different art forms. It's the only art form that unites all of the art forms, which is really, really neat. And so you've got strong visuals, you have dance, you have the singing, you've got the costumes, you've got all of that, you've got the orchestra, and then here you have the element of some digital music as well. So that impacts the texture of the orchestra. And we are mic'd very lightly in this production in order to just balance with the textures, just to enhance. Normally opera singers are not mic'd at all, but we are wearing some just for support, so that the texture of once the electronic sounds come in and all of that, we're still part of the fabric.
I see.
It's really neat. And the dancing is just. So Federico García Lorca loved flamenco. And I think that that's why it's an important part of this story as well. You have a lot. Plus, flamenco is so associated with Spain that it's important to have in this piece.
No, yes, of course. So tell me about getting to play Margarita, who was an actress.
Right. And director, and she had her own theater company, and she was an incredible actress. By the time they met, she and Federico, they were about 10 years apart, and she was 10 years his senior, and they became very, very close friends, tremendously close, and she in many ways was his muse. And she was the first one to interpret the role of Mariana Pineda, and there is a strong focal point of that reality in their story in the piece, because Mariana Pineda also, she was a martyr, and she was advocating for liberty, for freedom, for all of that, and she was killed because of that. And then there's a beautiful number that the character played by Daniela Mack, the character of Federico García Lorca, talks about how he fell in love with Mariana, and there was a statue that he could see from his window in his room when he was a little boy, and he just fell in love with her. So that play for him was not for political reasons. It was because he was just so inspired and enamored with the concept and the idea of Mariana, who had died 100 years more or less before he even wrote the play. And he had Margarita Xirgu debut the play. When the fascists were beginning to take over Spain, Margarita felt that Federico might perish in that, because he stood for everything that the fascists did not. And he insisted on staying in Spain and to be there with his people and to be a voice for those that felt that they were unheard or unseen, and that he could advocate for them. She begged him to leave and to go with her on the tour of Mariana Pineda, the play. So she toured it. She went to Cuba and to different parts of Latin America. He stayed, and he was killed. As we know, he was assassinated. And the character that made sure that he was assassinated, Ruiz, last name, is also a very strong and pivotal character in this piece that we're debuting next week, of AINADAMAR. So it's an incredible experience to play Margarita. and to see and to just know more about her friendship and relationship with Federico. And also the fact that she advocated so much for freedom. She never went back to Spain. Once she left, she never went back. And she kept performing his plays and making sure that they would be performed throughout Latin America until her dying day, so that his name would not vanish. So many times in wars, when certain artists have been incredible and have stood for things that are opposite to these oppressive regimes, their works are buried. And she wanted to make sure that he would not perish, his work would not perish, that his legacy would remain, which is so incredible. I mean, that is love. That is love and a purpose and a vocation, in addition to her vocation as an actor and later as a teacher. That was also her vocation. And that is beautifully exemplified through the relationship between Margarita and Nuria. And for me, the parallels there are right on target, because I have also begun teaching, my career as a teacher. I am now completing year 4 at Rice University in the Shepherd School of Music. So I also teach, and I know what it feels like to want to give your students every bit of information that you have, that you know will help them technically, that will make them feel more secure and confident, that will make their technical and singing life easier. And when you see them incorporating that and you see the light bulb go on and all of that, it's an incredible feeling. So I am navigating both the performer and also the teacher. And that is exactly where Margarita was. So it's very powerful to be a part of that.
That means that we, as a viewer, we would get to shed some tears.
I think you will. There are moments where I feel the tears coming. And as an actor, as a performer, it's important to ask yourself, why am I feeling the tears coming up? Meaning, if you're not yet in the shoes of that character, you're still observing the character, and that's why you're feeling for them, perhaps. But once you're in them, you probably won't. However, there's some, like I said, some electronic music components, and there are scenes where you hear, it's like a drone, very low drone sound, when there's a very intimidating thing happening within the story. And it makes sense when you're seeing the whole piece, but that is so intense. And then I am imagining, you're seeing what was happening, and I'm imagining it as Margarita, because Margarita was not there when this was happening. She heard about it, but she's remembering what she heard and probably imagining what was actually going on. So that's very powerful. And then the way that scene in particular is happening, the musical writing, which is so genius, has a bit of a cry, like when someone is sobbing, that kind of cry in delivering certain lines. So then that just brings up that emotional world. So it would make sense if some tears start to come up in that moment. It's because the character is genuinely going through that. She's having a very difficult time.
Tell me about a little bit about you and your career as a soprano. How do you even begin?
That is a great question. So everyone's path is different. I studied voice. I come from a musical family, but nevertheless, so if you're pursuing it, you've got the talent. You're born with it, but you still have to curate it. You still have to educate it, and you still have to develop a technique, much like a gymnast, right? A gymnast as a child is showing the dexterity and the natural ability, but without technique, they can't last very long. So I received my bachelor's and master's degrees from the Juilliard School in New York. And then I participated in numerous competitions. I think that once you're ready to start doing competitions, it's great when your package of, let's say, 5 pieces, 5 arias, is ready, and everyone is, and I always say this to my students, every piece has to be equally polished. There cannot be a discrepancy in level of polish between one piece and the other, because you get to choose the one you start with, but then your panel will ask you for the second piece. And if it's something that's not at that same level, that discrepancy is enough to raise a question mark for them. So that degree of discipline and the goal of perfection is always there. Perfection is, I would say, not attainable 100% of the time. You might have a second of perfection, a moment of perfection. I like to talk about being within that circle of perfection, really breathing it in, thinking that it can exist. When I think of perfection, I look at nature. So I like to be in that realm as I'm aiming for my highest ability. After that master's degree and a year of competitions and auditions, I entered the Young Artist Program at Houston Grand Opera, where I was there for a year. And immediately following that, I had some engagements in Germany, and engagements started coming with the help of my managers. And you do auditions that the managers book for you when you're still getting known in the industry. And after a while of continuous excellence, the word spreads, you're known, and the manager then gets the call, oh, is this artist available for this production? So you don't have to audition so much after a while. I would say everyone's path is different, and I would encourage everyone to seek the highest training possible for them, so that when they hit the ground running or they're out of the gate, they're ready at the highest level, because you're competing, yes, with many people, that's true. But remember that your greatest competitor is yourself. You really are competing with yourself. Please remember that. Otherwise, it is so intimidating. You look to the right, you look to the left, and you start imbuing others with maybe more than they have, and you start putting yourself down, which is very normal in this field. And I encourage everyone, just put your blinders on. You've done your work. You can wish everybody well, because the spirit of competition can be intimidating, but it also brings out the best in everybody. And trust that that competition process is bringing out the best in you. Just go full steam ahead. You've done your work. If you know what you're doing, nothing to be afraid of.
Wow. And Maria, so what's one of the places that your favorite places where you've performed?
They're all
over the world.
they're all very dear to me, because I see this, the word sacred has a religious connotation, but it's also a spiritual connotation. For me, every single stage is sacred, because that's where I'm doing my work, my fulfilling my purpose, or part of my purpose is that. So every space is a space I bless. Every space is one that I'm grateful for. And so everyone is near and dear to my heart. I would say that some spaces I might have a stronger chemistry with, or a longer history with. And I remember making my debut at the Vienna Staatsoper, and I just thought, my goodness, the energy here is just incredible. And thinking of everyone who has sung there, a beautiful relationship with LA Opera as well, and it's a sense of family and familiarity. A very similar feeling with Lyric Opera Chicago, and I have such a long history with Houston as well. And these are some of the US houses. I would say Santa Fe Opera for the summers, it is just magical. Where it is geographically, and how you can appreciate the sunset from the audience perspective. I encourage people to make those trips, almost a pilgrimage, if you will, to these locations to see great art and beautiful nature. And the Met, of course, it's a mecca for so many, given the history and reputation of the Met. And in Europe, I mentioned Vienna, London, the Royal Opera House, also just an exquisite experience. Paris, I've sung a lot at the Bastille, and I have not sung at the Palais Garnier, which is actually where my audition took place many years ago. And on the spot, I was offered 4 contracts, which just usually doesn't happen that way. That was a very, that audition was very magical, because it doesn't usually happen that you have offers on the spot. But again, I mean, I've named a few that are very beautiful and I have a long history with, but every space is sacred for me.
I feel like your genre in music still has borders to cross.
I think it does, and I think it's the genre itself is doing its best to make sure that everybody feels included. And I want to advocate for that. I have always advocated for that. I did an interview just over 10 years ago for Opera News Magazine, where the editors chose the title Opera for All based on the interview I gave. And I realized, I guess that is what I'm focusing on. And that's the takeaway from that interview. It is for everyone. And it began as the popular music of the time. And it was for everybody. And then through the ages, it became elitist and it became super expensive. And many people felt, oh, you have to dress up. What if I don't have something fancy to put on to go to the opera? I don't care. Come in jeans. I personally want each and every one of you to have the experience of witnessing something where all of the art forms are together. It's relatable. Sometimes it's relatable for the situation in the world at large. Sometimes it's relatable on the micro level of what you're going through in your life, love stories, or people trying to divide those that love each other, or sacrifices that happen because of love, either love for the country or love for your loved one, loss and grief, or humor, absolute humor. The last production we did just recently of Così fan tutte at LA Opera was really funny, and I got to play the comedic relief of the night. And here, as Margarita Xirgu, it is just the opposite, where it's devastating for all the right reasons. And I want everyone who's in that theater during AINADAMAR to really ask themselves, how does this relate to me? You mean to you, right? How does this relate to the world? And the one big takeaway I want everyone to ask themselves is what they want their legacy to be. Because that was a big part of her life. And the legacy could be kindness. The legacy could be work ethic. The legacy could be what you leave for your children. The legacy could be something you invented, something you created, a tradition you established, kindness to your neighbors. It could be whatever you want it to be, but what is your legacy? Think about that. So I think that these questions and the way that I'm presenting them shows you how much I value each and every human being, and that I want you all to feel the truth that you are welcome. You are welcome at the opera houses. And I know that I speak for my colleagues as well. And opera companies would love to have you there. And there are certain opera companies that are making great efforts in reducing ticket prices so that everyone can feel that it's within their budget to attend. And really, come in jeans, come as you are. Really, just it's the experience. I think those days of elitist, they're gone. Now, if you want to dress up and you want to be fancy, sure, go ahead. You'll see everything. You'll see every demographic represented at the Opera House, because it really is for everybody.
I did check out the prices, tickets, everything for the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, and yeah, prices are affordable.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And everyone can go to laopera.org to look into performance dates for AINADAMAR and for the other productions that they have, and look at the ticket prices. And I'm so grateful, Nancy, that you shared that.
Yes, I mean, it's worth it. We're a full hour and 20 minutes with no intermission.
And right. And what I love about that is that it's nice and short, right? It's not super long, but also there's no interruption of an intermission. So you are really drawn into the story and you're really living it. You're experiencing it. And I also encourage everyone to just talk about the piece once they leave. If you've come on your own, call someone you love and talk to them about it. If you've come with a friend, talk about it together afterwards. Really, really dig into it. It's quite a piece. It's really an incredible experience.
Yes.
I want to add, sorry, Nancy, I just want to add that you don't have to be intimidated if you don't speak the language for any opera, because there is a word-for-word translation of the pieces. And so it could be in Czech, it could be in Italian and French, and even if you don't speak this language, don't worry, there's going to be a word-for-word translation, so you'll be able to follow, no problem.
Yes, that's true. That is a very important to cover. Well, thank you so much, Ana Maria, for your time. Congratulations. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, Nancy.
There from April 26th. to May 18th here. Right?
18th, yes. There are 6 performances. And yes, I encourage everyone to go to the website again, laopera.org, and you can get further details. And this is one not to be missed. It is so powerful, so amazing. And there are some productions, some pieces that the person you are when you enter is not the same person you are when you leave the theater. And I will tell you, this is one of those productions.
Wow, amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time again, and congratulations.
Thank you, Nancy. Take care.
You're welcome.